How you guys doing today? My name is Carvell.
I'm Chris.
I'm Matt.
And welcome to the We Have Issue podcast. Today we're talking about the shutdown that's happening right now. And just to give you guys a little bit of the backstory, on October 1st, 2025, the federal government entered a shutdown because Congress failed to pass the appropriation bill and for the 2026 fiscal year. This now, it is the longest U.S. government shutdown in history. The shutdown is the result of deep partisan disagreements between the Republicans and the Democrats, and the administration wants to fund the government operation, but tie funding to policy changes like healthcare is what's causing the Democrats to not allow or to oppose the reopening of the government right now. And right now we're at a critical moment in this shutdown where we're trying to understand, or at least the senators are trying to understand, how can we open the government? Currently, right now, we have, I believe the number is around 900,000 federal employees have not been paid. So what's happening is a lot of these employees are actually going home and not having food, so they're being forced to go to food banks. And a lot of other people who are tied in the government somehow, some way in their pay, they're also having similar issues. Like, for example, currently right now, we know that the government is pulling back as far as how much TSA employees we have, particularly those who are in control of the flights. And we see 10% less flights going on right now, currently at this moment. So this shutdown is affecting everywhere in the U.S., not just at home, not just me, but traveling and government employees, food banks, and everywhere, and SNAP too as well. So this is something that's affecting everyone, no matter who you are, no matter where you live. If you live in Michigan, if you live in Kentucky or Louisiana, it doesn't matter where you live, it's affecting you. So one of the things I wanted to ask is, Chris, how do you feel about this shutdown? How is it affecting people in Kentucky? And what do you see as a solution?
I'm going to say that, first off, I called this, that the shutdown would continue and it would be the longest last week. Unfortunately, I was right there. I am worried about the length that the shutdown has gone to and that there seems to be no end in sight. I know that, like, those food banks, I mean, I want to say everyone around me has been stepping up. There's been a lot of local businesses that have taken on the, if you show your SNAP card, we will feed your kids for free, which has been amazing. You know, there's a lot of Christian charity going on in my area. We shouldn't have to rely on that. You know, we've had these programs in place. These food banks, they will not be able to keep up with the volume that they're getting. You know, we alluded to that last week. For the short term, it's doable. But when a crisis becomes the norm, systems start to break and people run into a lot of trouble. One of the things, you know, you mentioned we've been cutting down on flights because we are lacking air traffic controllers. I work in the airline industry, and I've been seeing it firsthand that these shutdowns are starting to affect the way people make decisions, people operate. One of the things with that I'm worried about is this past week, you know, we saw that UPS plane in Louisville had that tragic crash. You know, still people are still missing from that, by the way. Hopefully they are found soon. Those sorts of issues will only get worse as we lose those air traffic controllers, because that will affect the number of flights that go out, and the flights that do actually get to fly out will be under a lot more pressure to actually hit their windows, and we might see different things with the cargo liners might carry on more weight because they're having less flights, and there might be more issues that crop up. Luckily, the airline industry is a fairly safe industry. It's one of the safest ways to travel. I can tell you for a fact that the standards that are set are strict and are followed for the most part very well. The follow-up is great there.
Hey, Chris, I have a question.
Yes.
So I heard about a statistic that, since you're in that industry, maybe you have a better idea that not so much statistic, but just a future prediction that if the shutdown continues, then it could be, give it a few weeks to a month, it could be as much as 20 to 25% of airlines having to cut back.
I mean, I don't see it going on for much longer unless, I don't know how you're going to fix that, because I don't know about you, Carvell, but I couldn't go without being paid for 2 months. We've already gone a month without pay, and
it's wild.
And those are diehards that are up there in the towers. That the only people that are left in those towers are the ones who understand that they are required, like they are needed for the whole infrastructure of the American airline industry to operate. But even those people have their limits, and I don't know how you are going to reach a point where you have any flights unless you, I don't know, I guess you could force military who have experience with air traffic controllers. You could force them to man the most, critical airports. I mean, you would basically have every small airport shut down in the country, which would put a burden on the ground freight system.
I mean, it's a huge issue too coming into holidays too as well, because
God.
We got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, and even more flights, prediction. So how does that all get figured out?
I think Hegseth offered reserved air traffic controllers, but I think there's kind of like a debacle where they can't just activate them immediately.
That's what they're going to have to do, because it's going to become a national emergency. We will reach a point where there is nobody in that tower, which means there are 0 planes that can be in the air.
That's wild.
And that it'll be like 9/11 all over again. And it's fully self-inflicted. Like I was talking about last week, I don't understand why these critical jobs are put into a budget that can be taken away. That is asinine, in my opinion. That you have all of these necessary programs, necessary jobs that we can just ignore and act like it's going to fix itself.
The Green Party ought to love this because nobody's flying. Bernie Sanders ought to love this. Wasn't he saying people shouldn't fly so much?
It's possible. I don't know.
Planes.
But I know Al Gore was probably.
I mean,
I don't know where he's at.
When it comes to a head, though, it's funny because the people that Bernie Sanders was railing against for flying all the time, they're going to be the ones that force the government to go back into session, because you're going to tell me that these businessmen aren't going to be able to fly to their meetings. The senators themselves will be unable to fly home for the holidays if there are no air traffic controllers. Yeah. Maybe I would think, I don't know about you, but I doubt there's a lot of California senators that want to drive from West Coast senators that want to drive from DC to the West Coast.
Well, somehow the government will make exceptions. It always happens that way.
They'll get on the Kash Patel plane to fly down and see their girlfriends.
Yeah,
but I mean, in international travel, that will be consistent. I don't know what they're thinking. There's rules in place.
It's wild. It's wild because this is costing us a lot of money. Economically, I heard analysts talk about with the weekly cost of this is $7 to $15 billion each week as the shutdown continues, and that has everything to do with everything, right? And we've already talked about the federal employees not getting paid, but you got mortgages, you got bills, you got programs people rely on, early education grants, small business supports, and all this gets disrupted.
What's even worse is that Trump keeps saying that he might not give back pay for all of this time on furlough. So not only did I get furloughed for 2 months and not have any income coming in, but now I just lost all that income. Am I going to even stay in the job?
You're
going to have a competency crisis in these industries that require a lot of competency. Do you want to hire somebody fresh off the street on the first day to manage hundreds of aircraft in a small area?
Only if they are gay.
Well, you know what, guys? This is and this is one of the things, right? Trump, we understand he's a businessman, right? And if you've listened to a lot of interviews with people he's done business with, this is the very tactic he does, and it works. It can work in the business world, but it doesn't work with the American people and the economy, because what you hear a lot of people talk about is how that sometimes Trump won't pay them, and it will get to the point where they'll have to sue Trump. That's exactly your scenario that you explained. Yeah, the scenario you explained, those employees, if that actually happens, those employees will have to result into suing the Trump administration. Yes, they will win. But why does it? We already know they're gonna win if it comes to that.
I don't know who wins and who doesn't.
There's no grant. They wouldn't win it. So what's unfortunate. That kind of ties into Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. He proposed 2 bills that would basically stop lawmakers from getting paid, and that was the issue with the more aggressive of the 2 bills. One just completely said you don't get back pay, you don't get paid at all until the government shutdowns, which is for lawmakers. So this is like
lawmakers. Yeah. Of course.
So the first one was kind of aggressive and just said you don't get paid and you don't get back pay, and then he proposed another one that basically put the funds into escrow. Mm-hmm. But with the first one, there was a whole big legal debacle about until the House session for the next year, you can't do that. So that one, there's a whole bunch of legal loopholes to where not a whole lot they're going to be able to do.
That's Congress, right? I think
But that's what I'm saying. The government has a contingency plan in place specifically for this. So this very situation where they come back and sue, you can't basically.
I think what they need to do is do what the College of Cardinals does when they can't select a pope, where if they go so many days, they only get bread and water. And there was a historical precedent for one of the elections where they literally took the roof off of the building they were staying at and wouldn't let them leave until they selected a pope. So maybe we need to do that with our congressmen and senators to get them to come to an agreement.
Well, yeah,
it needs to happen.
That's what Kennedy was trying to do, and and Trump came out. Rand Paul was actually against it, which I found quite interesting. He shot it down.
Rand Paul's about half of his ideas are great, and the other half are completely stupid.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about him.
And he's my senator, so I know.
Yeah. I don't think he's a bad guy. It's just some of his things.
He's
I'm like,
Aqua Buddha.
The Aqua
Buddha.
Google it. It's hilarious.
Okay, I'm about to check that out. But that's interesting. I think with the American people, a lot of people, when they view these situations they say that, hey, everyone that is running the government, you're at fault. President Trump, you're at fault. Republicans, you're at fault. Democrats, you're at fault. Everybody who's running the government that they perceive that's running the government is at fault. But when you think about employees, right, and you think about employees who actually have to do a job, not get paid, I think people have a little bit more compassion towards them. And they say that, hey, these people, they actually had to work in a sense against their will. They had to work for free money, which is kind of, in a sense, modern day slavery. So if we think to ourselves that, hey, because we know the word slavery has a bad connotation to it, and these people, as it should, these people were technically slaves because they were working for free and in a sense against their will, because somebody had to run the country, right? Somebody had to help these institutions still run while us, the American people, benefited from it. And I think this is where American people will have compassion. American people will say, hey, these people deserve not only back pay, but a little bit of extra, double time or a time and a half, whatever it may be. It's just how a lot of American people think, right? So that's why I will say that American people will have that they would win a lawsuit if it went that far, because judges, American people will have more compassion towards these people than the ones that set the laws.
What is that? Sovereign immunity, where you can't sue the government because they are the law?
Sovereign immunity, yeah, but I mean, the thing is, like right now, with the way the courts have been, like, who knows? It could.
Who knows, right? Like, our court system is bananas. I can't believe we are at a point in this country where I don't know what laws are going to be followed and what laws are not.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the first time in history that I feel this has been a thing. So,
yeah. Did you see that the Supreme Court just sided with Trump and not releasing any of the SNAP?
Yes, I did see that.
Just for the viewers, a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, excuse me, two federal judges told the Trump administration that they had to release money for SNAPs. However, this reached the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of President Trump and saying that, hey, you do not need to release the money for the SNAP for who's ever on it. And this is something that it's got us scratching our heads. Like, we have federal judges saying this, Supreme Court saying this. We just want people to look out for the American people.
It sucks. I saw that, and I need to watch some videos and get some more info on it. But the thing is it something that could even be done? Was this a case of where were the funds tied up, and could they even be released for this? That was kind of just the blow by. Seeing the story is what I understood was these were funds that couldn't even be used to fund SNAP, and the lower circuit court judges were like, it's okay, and then the Supreme Court shot it down. And that's why, like Chris is saying, that's why this clown show is bad, is because you get to the point where it's like you want Trump to do things that is not in his power to do, but you also want Trump to stay within the Constitution. And so it's like we're playing this pick and choose game of, well, it's okay to circumvent standard procedure here, but not here. And so it's hard to take these extreme principled stances when everybody's been goofing around. We talked about this in the last video. I mentioned this. The lower circuit court judges have been messing with Trump and, crying that the sky is falling on some of these issues that don't matter so much. Now we can't, when it comes down to crunch time, if we wanted Trump to be a radical, he can't even afford to, because they've made such a big deal out of little things. And so that's my concern with the whole, oh my God, Trump's a dictator and a fascist. He can't, even if he wanted to right now, he can't afford to take some kind of crazy rash action.
Action like, sending National Guard troops into American cities.
Well, like I said, but that's the thing. These are gray areas. These are gray areas, though. That's the problem with this is, they've hollered Trump's done all these illegal things, but he's just treading along that line there.
I don't know, man. I think he's done a lot of illegal things that he's just bypassing a lot of checks and balances. This is the only real issue I have with him, is that how I perceive that he's trying to uproot the system that was put in place in order so that certain people don't have too much power, and it's one of those things where I'm just like, question. Let's say, for an example, right now during this shutdown, I know a lot of people were crying wolf about the job reports, the economics data and stuff, and what's going on. We don't know anything that's going on right now, and this is kind of one of the things. I don't know the details, and I wish I did. Maybe you guys know. But when I think about this right here, about just this broad, just this point of view about the jobs report and economic data and, delayed federal data, I think back to how he fired a woman that was responsible in giving out job data, and because the data came out when he didn't want it to, or didn't come out how he exactly told her how to report it, she got fired from it. Now that's a story I heard. This is just very broad. I don't know if you guys heard anything else about it, but as an American citizen, I want everybody to give it to me straight. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't be a salesman, because we know Trump is a very good salesman, one of the best in the business, right? Or if not the best. But when we're talking about real things that we have to depend our lives on, which is, real pieces of data, federal data, and these things get manipulated. That's kind of where it strokes me the wrong way.
Well, I can tell you this, Carvell, on job reports, everybody's lying to you every damn time. So the Republicans are good about adding jobs, but they're like, ditch digging jobs. And like you remember with Biden, they said, oh, the Biden economy bounced back. Yeah, they were bounced back jobs from COVID. So the Republicans and Democrats both lie about the job market.
You're probably right. I wouldn't deny that you are right or wrong about that.
The only thing I care about on the job report is, do I have a job and does it pay enough?
Yeah. Really.
I mean that's a fair question, right? That's do I have a job, and that's what a lot of people are asking, because I know a lot of people that have not had a job for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, for a while. And you can't initially blame Trump for any of this, right? Because in a sense, you can say, just like a lot of the presidents before him, Obama or Bill Clinton or him, they inherit an economy, right? However, when you start to do things such as tariffs, and I'm not going to speak about if I'm for or against, because I'm mainly actually for tariffs, depending on how they're implemented. But when you start to do things like this and people start to lose jobs, you got to tread lightly. And because when people start to blame you for the economy based on how you implement tariffs, it could be your fault. It could be something that you're doing. And Trump has doubled down on this, and he has to be really careful, because this could be something that will set the American people back.
Speaking of Trump and tariffs, how do you guys feel about this new $2,000 a person tariff dividend that Trump's been pushing around?
Oh, I haven't heard about it.
I don't want it. It's going. We should have learned our lesson with the COVID checks. All they're going to do is they're going to say, people have an extra $2,000. Let's run out and raise the damn rents. That's exactly what happened. The COVID money was supposed to be for people who were struggling. They were either lost their job or was working reduced hours, and that was the whole theory, was put a little.
Hey.
They are struggling now, and that's what I'm saying. It's going to be, that's what the COVID money was supposed to be for, and it got ate up because they ran out and raised the damn rent, and that's what.
Hey, I got a suggestion. Chris. How about we take that money, give it to the people that need SNAP, give it to the people that are in the government that are not getting paid, give it to the people, the 900,000 employees, federal employees I was just talking about. Let's give it to the people right now who need it. That's the solution.
Which is insane to me, because that he could just do that, because that goes back to, who has the power of the purse, right?
Yeah.
The Congress. is the one that ought to have the power of the purse. That's the reason why the PPP loans all got forgiven, but student loans still haven't. Because Congress gets to decide how to spend our money, and not the president.
And, that's only like $21 billion in wages. And I know that sounds like a lot, but there's only $21
billion. That's
billion.
what we gave to Argentina.
That's what I was about to say is like, you can cut something from Argentina. You could stop sending something to Israel or queer art projects in Afghanistan or something like that. You could pay it. But going back to bureaucracy and red tape, there's just so many things that gum up the works with that.
I want to remind people, the United States government doesn't pay anything. Because we never collect enough tax to pay for it. It's all deficit spending. So any time they spend money, because they are so gun shy about the possibility of raising taxes, it all goes to inflation. Every little bit of it. And this tariff dividend, that's all it will be, is going to inflation. Paying government employees, funding SNAP, doing all these things. It's just going to be tacked onto inflation. Americans are running up a credit card that we are expecting our children to pay for.
Pass the buck down the line.
And in the past, this was used for luxuries. But now we are that family that has poor economic sense, and we are using credit cards to pay credit cards. And that is where America's at right now. And that's one of the hardest things to fix. And I'm not sure what's the best policy to fix that right now, because we are so deep in the dirt.
I saw this thing online that a lot of Gen Zs, not so much millennials, but Gen Z are just saying, screw it. And they're not renting, they're living in their cars, they're doing things that the millennials, Gen X, and boomers didn't really have to do. Sure, the millennials, we did get the crappy end of the stick, right? But the Gen Z is a generation where they're just saying, you know what? I'm throwing my hands up and I don't care.
Oh, there's no way out.
Millennials kind of, you say we got the bad stick, but I mean, we've seen how good it can be. We have hope. I don't know if these newer generations, they have never known any success. They have only seen struggle. And
I agree. I agree. They've only seen struggle.
And they're just doomers right now. They don't think that anything can be fixed, and they just expect everything to be bad. And that worries me in a political environment, because if you expect things to be bad and see them bad, you don't recognize that as something that needs to be changed. At least we know that things are bad and they can be better. So we want to fight for how they can get better.
Yeah, that's why we're so pissed off. I mean, I'll go off on this little tangent just a little bit, but so obviously I wasn't alive for this, but how the story goes, with my dad, he worked for a mechanical company, and business got slow and they were going to do layoffs, and he took a voluntary layoff because he wanted to build our house. And so he took the layoff. He took out $20,000, I think it was, to start the build on our house. And, within a few years had the loan paid off. He started his own plumbing company and, kind of went from there. And we were never well off, but we were taken care of. And so, now, right now, man, I just think about that. I'm like, my dad was able to voluntarily take a layoff, start a business, build a house, pay the loan back in a few years. I was like, there's no way in hell you could do that now. You get laid off, you're screwed, and you certainly ain't building a house.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you think about housing prices, right? We think about that, what it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you talk to your parents and how they could, have a one income home, but, pay $50,000 for a house and, build a family. You know, here in Michigan, where we have some of the lowest housing prices in the richest county inside of the state of Michigan, you can get a house for a decent house for like a 4-family house for, I would say, around $300,000. You know, something that is decent livable. But sadly, a lot of people can't afford that, you know, and stuff. And on the low end, you know, we're talking about $200,000, you know, $150,000. But those are marketed to people who are making, you know, less than $20 an hour.
And the down payment, that's the other issue, is because if you, you know, the whole boomer idea is, well, you rent until you save up your down payment and you buy your house.
Save on rent.
You can't, no, you can't.
Rent is more than a mortgage now.
Exactly. Yep, you're right.
And not on top of that too, you got to make sure that you have enough credit, because nobody's going to give you money if you don't have credit. And you know, you come with us.
Shouldn't we learned that lesson in 2008 with the ARM mortgages and all that.
I mean, we definitely did, but like, what are you to do? You can't, you know. So you got these Gen Zs and soon to be Alpha generation. I mean, like, I will say millennials got the bad end of the sticks. We were promised so much. I remember, you know, you just go to school, you get good grades, you'll find a good job, and you don't have to worry. Nobody was preaching that you couldn't go to school for liberal arts. Nobody was preaching that until like you got into school or afterwards, at least, you know, at you know, our age. That's what I thought, you know, and stuff. Nobody was preaching about being an engineer. Nobody said that, you know, in 20 years time, the tech industry is going to be driven by AI. You know, nobody said any of that. And so the millennials were promised so much. So we did have hope, even though we didn't get a lot of what was promised to us. But the Gen Z, I think it's going to end up coming to the point where, you know, we're going to have a huge amount of debt. We're going to have this continuous chaotic political cycles in our country, and they're going to just say, screw this. They're going to elect someone, I never say his name right, like the guy from New York City.
Oh, Mamdani?
Yeah. Because they're just tired and angry, and they want somebody that is just completely different from the status quo.
That might be the upside to all of this, Carvell, is, and I get it, it sucks, because I did this. I went a month without, you know, pay with a job that I had, and the other people in the company were doing the same thing. A lot of people were like giving loans back and forth, and so almost the entire company, except for the upper levels, we worked without pay for a month. So it sucks. I get it. And even then, we didn't get all of our money that we were owed. But with the government shutdown, I think this is really showing people how to get creative. Like, you know, there's I mentioned it last episode, the guy that went and started the hot dog stand since he's furloughed. And that's to me would be the silver lining in all this, is hopefully Gen Z starts to find these alternative ways. Like, you're going to probably see an uptick in people who do like these little communes, almost go in together, buy a spot of land, and somehow build these accessory dwelling units to live there. Probably going to see them either foregoing college or doing like I did and go to a college like, you know, Penn Foster or something, transfer to those colleges just because of the affordability, because at this point, the paper's just a qualification. You know, it's not setting you up for a job. So I think you're going to see like this whole alternative economy almost emerge, and that might be a good thing.
Well, what do you think is going to end up happening? Because when it comes to the debt that we have and the deficit that we have, because you know, as we know, years before, like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this debt was affordable. You know, the deficit wasn't that much. Now it's the biggest cost in our budget.
What the future, what's gonna have to hold, it's gonna come to austerity. It's gonna have to come to repressively high taxes, or repressively high inflation, to service that debt. And you know, we're gonna be screwed. The only thing that's backing the U.S. dollar right now is hundreds of warships, hundreds of thousands of planes, millions of troops. That's the only thing that is supporting the U.S. dollar right now. And that's kind of what the Soviet Union, like, I see a lot of parallels between America currently and the old Soviet Union of the 1970s and 1980s, with, you know, overblown budgets, ruled by the original. How many boomers are still running this government? How many 80, 70-year-olds, you know? They are, like, Pelosi just decided she's going to retire. We are being run by a gerontocracy that is out of touch, has no idea what the average American citizen's experience is. And it's going to lead to more and more fracturing of society. Unfortunately, unlike the Soviet Union, the U.S. government seems to be heading more towards a surveillance state, where you have people like J.D. Vance with his ties to Peter Thiel and Palantir, and you see more and more, you know, tracking online. We're going to be ruled by these tech bros like Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. That's a scary kind of future we're looking at.
I mean, we're kind of headed there right now, right? With
that's what I'm scared
Mandani, right?
And that's
because
it's our leadership.
He's preaching on taxing like crazy the millionaires and billionaires inside New York City.
I think they do too. They've been having a free lunch.
Did you see like the realtor.com? Like it's just like red spots everywhere where people are like getting the hell out of New York.
So guys, the golden age of American society was when we were taxing multimillionaires and billionaires 90%. That was the golden age, the 1950s America. I mean, maybe not golden age for you, Carvell, but
yeah, right. I'm like, golden age. It's like the stereotypical. When was America great again?
So what? But hey, in the 10 years ahead of that, in the 60s, you saw the black business boom. So.
Well, I wasn't alive during that time. I don't want to really want to speak on it, I guess.
The era that was the biggest jump in American GDP.
Well, you got to understand, like, if you guys were speaking to, like, let's say, for an example, some people in my family, my mother, they will tell you that's some of the worst times in the 70s, where they would see after, like, Martin Luther King died, she lived in Detroit, you would see tanks come down the side of the street. You got to understand, Philadelphia was bombed for the first time. A U.S. city was bombed by the government, where it's just a bunch of black neighborhoods. You had Detroit at homicide rate at all-time high, where segregation in a lot of northern states were real, because it wasn't more so of a we hate you go over there. It was more so we don't know about you, and these laws are going to protect us, so we're going to stay over here, and then you stay on your side. And so it's kind of like, I didn't live during that time period, so I can't tell you how hard it was, and stuff. But and that's for a different discussion, a different day or whatever and stuff. But jumping back onto these Gen Zs, right? Mandani, he's really close. He's like 4 years off to being a Gen Z, right? He's 34 years old. He's one of those people that sees what's going on, because he can connect better to people that's 10 years younger than him. And he's saying, like, I think it's going to come to a point where, you're talking about taxing billionaires and millionaires 90%. He would go that extreme, and I don't necessarily agree with taxing million and billionaires that much. I do agree with taxing them, but not that much. But it's something that's going to have to break. I mean, are we going to have to get rid of our social services that we got going on? Are we going to have to get rid of Medicaid and Medicare? Because you'll have a bunch of old people with guns and pitchforks. What I
think we ought to do is cut out the health insurance industry entirely and just service it Medicare for all, because private industries with profit motives should not be in control of your health.
Right.
I agree with that. I agree with that to a lot of
And
extent.
you know, I used to be one of those that was against universal health care and all that, but I've brought this up. Steven Crowder did this like sting operation where he went back to Canada and like pretended that he had a broken arm and like he sat in the emergency room and was like, you know, basically trying to get health care in Canada. And like the end of the video, he's like, oh, you see, I waited in there for 24 hours. And I'm like, it's the same damn thing that we have here in America, only they're going to bill your ass for $7,500 when you leave.
Not for Steven Crowder. He gets you know, VIP treatment, cuts in line of all the poor people. You know, his insurance pays for, you know, that's the problem.
Right.
It's a tiered insurance system.
I lived in Taiwan and they had some of the best universal healthcare systems. Asia has some of the best, right? Here's the thing about it, right? In their universal healthcare systems, you don't have as many issues as you do in the US because number one, people in general are healthy. People in general are walking. People are they're not bought out by rich companies who can sell anything to American people. They can sell food laced with so much disgusting things that Americans shouldn't eat. And also too, people sometimes at workstations, you know, we do have it here and stuff, but they have gyms over there, right? Like people can work out. Like I remember I was just at the school, at an elementary school over the summer in Taiwan. And my friend, he was showing me the gym. He was showing me a gym at the elementary school. And he was like, we can use these, you know. So there is a culture of exercise, a culture of staying slim and fit. Now, if we could implement such culture inside here, and I'm not going as far as saying employers should require their employees to be a certain amount of weight or anything. I'm not saying that. I mean,
the way that Japan does their annual health checkups, I wouldn't be opposed to that in America.
I mean, you know, it's not awful. It's not bad, but I mean, I'm guilty of this because I make very poor health choices. I do admit that. But if there was more pressure on the American people to make better health choices, then we wouldn't have to put so much money inside of this healthcare system, and we wouldn't have to fork out so much money for Medicare and Medicaid.
Carvell, you don't want the government to tell you.
I know,
what
right?
You're doing is eating like crap. You don't want it to be insulted. You want that freedom to die young and be miserable.
Yeah, I know, right?
I don't want them telling me what I can and can't do, but I do want them telling the corporations what they can and can't do.
Well, it's not necessarily them telling you what you can and can't do. It's them creating a standard. You can eat whatever you want to, but just don't come back over here with high blood pressure, you know.
Well, you know, and I hate to, let me go Nick Fuentes here for a moment. If you want to talk about pros to a certain party that did not like people wearing little hats, that was one thing that they did institute in Germany, was to make Germany healthy again. They did bring in a lot of exercise programs and revamp their food system. And the whole purpose behind that was to make healthcare affordable again. And so that's what I don't understand with the Maha movement, what people's problem is with it, because I'm like, if you want universal healthcare, you know, it's like my buddy Chris, we used to go to the gym together, and Chris would walk out of the gym and like start smoking a cigarette and crack open a beer. And Chris is all for universal healthcare. And I was like, why the hell would I pay for you, dude? Like, you're in terrible shape, you know? And so that's my thing, is if you want universal health care, like you're saying, Carvell, you need to cultivate a culture somehow of making people healthy where you can afford to do that. You can't have Lizzo running around every damn where.
Yeah, well, she has money.
Running anywhere,
she has her money, so she can get private health care. I don't care about her.
Everywhere, I should say.
These are these programs that are going to cause issues in the future with these government shutdowns and things. To kind of reel us back into the topic at hand, what are some solutions that we have for this sort of behavior? So this is the longest government shutdown we've ever had.
40 days.
The second longest government shutdown. Which president did that occur under, and how long ago? Trump. Yep. right?
Oh.
What I'm worried about is we are going to start seeing this used more and more as a weapon in the toolkit of the mono party to get more and more for themselves. And yeah, this shutdown is 40 days, 60 days, who knows? I've heard rumors this could go till Christmas. That would be ridiculous, but not unreasonable, I don't think, considering we need to have something in place to prevent this from happening.
Do you think, though, some people, like, for an example, a bunch of Democrats, they could vote just to open up the government, knowing that this is not something they agree with, just to get reelected?
I mean, they do this all the time.
It plays in their favor right now. They wouldn't do that.
But, what can you do if a politician lies to you? I guess we'll re-elect him again.
Right.
Because they fit the right team color.
I think a lot of American people too as well. We have amnesia, right? We forget things easily. Something that happens like a year and a half, 2 years ago, we totally think as if we forgot that it even happened, or we forgive so easily and stuff. I'm only bringing that up and thinking about that, like, just how like a lot of people vote. Like, if someone really screwed you over during the beginning of their term, people forget about it. Like Trump, everything he's doing right now, people are going to forget about it in 2 years later. I'm not sure they'll forget about it next year when, election time comes on. But in 2027, if he plays his cards right, everybody's going to forget all of his mistakes of 2025. Every single one of them. I think, and I've always thought this, that we have a representative democracy. We should enact every blue moon electoral democracy where people at masses vote. Not all the time, because that would get too hectic, too crazy.
You want federal referendums?
I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, where if we have like an issue like this, right, we could like bring to a vote, hey, I don't think this congressman or congresswoman is working out, and kick him out of the office halfway through. I don't know how that would work. I don't know how that would be implemented.
You could impeach congressmen, technically.
Yeah, but
technically,
like,
you have the ability to impeach it, but oh my God, like how that. The inertia you'd need to get that done is insane.
I'm trying to hunt down a message because I'll shield for the American Solidarity Party. I can't remember if it was Dane or if it was Charlie. It might not be either of them. But we were talking about the shutdowns, and somebody had brought up, and I think this is some kind of Catholic thing, kind of an arbitration, like a mandatory arbitration if you go into a shutdown. And it sounded like a good idea. But basically, it'd be like a nonpartisan arbitration that you have to come to the table.
My solution is there is a limited number of time, like there's a limited time to come up with a budget. And if you do not vote for the budget, then your seat should be up for a special election. And that should be the solution for that. So if you go in to make this budget and you vote, hey, we need to talk on this budget, your seat is not up for that special election. But if you decline the budget and it's after 30 days, let's say, we hold a special election to make sure that is exactly what your constituency wants. Because you can't not fund the government. I don't think the people want this government shutdown. And no. I don't think that they have recourse except but like you said, Carvell, everyone has short-term memories. They're going to forget that they ran into this budget problem. Most people will, because most people aren't employed by the federal government. Most people, this doesn't really hit them as hard as you would think. Most people don't work for the federal government. Most people aren't on SNAP. Most people aren't in the military. It's a good portion of the population, but even then they might not remember. What do you guys think the party thinks about this shutdown? Do you think we would play this game?
No.
I personally think if we were the Democrats, we would play this game. If we were Republicans, I feel that we would try to negotiate somehow, some way. because we would know it would be a bad look on us. This is kind of one of the solutions that I have, is a bigger third party. I mean, like, if we had a bigger third party, the third party would be the tiebreaker.
Yeah, if we have more representation through a more diverse electorate, these coalitions that have to march in lockstep with each other become less and less, and you can get more defectors over to your side. Like, we might not be the Republicans, but we could probably get a Republican senator to break ranks if they're not a majority, if they have to work with a coalition. Crossing the aisle would occur more and more if we get more and more third parties like the American Solidarity Party in places of power.
That's 100% correct, because you think about it, if you're a Democrat, you can't blame American Solidarities and the Republicans, or if you're a Republican, you can't be Donald Trump and say, oh, it's the Democrats and it's the American Solidarity Party. It's gonna be like, wait, it's both of them, so you have no fault. So it's one of those things that it would bring more stability right now in our American political system. Going back to your original question, what we would do, I think that a lot of the people, American Solidarity Party, they would definitely be pushing for people to get their benefits, for people to get paid, for making sure people are taken care of. And even if that meant them not getting paid for it, I think the American Solidarity Party will be more righteous than the Democrat and Republicans.
I think they would have definitely supported Kennedy's bill to keep people from getting paid that shouldn't be paid.
I want to go on record. I'd support that.
Really.
Don't you guys think a lot of those politicians, they already have a lot of money?
They do, but this is still a way to inflict some kind of pain.
Yeah, it's a gesture of goodwill, good faith. If we're going to hold ourselves to the same standard we're holding you to.
It kind of calls the question, how committed are you really to what's going on? Are you committed enough to give up your paycheck for your principles? Because it's easy to be principled when you're still getting your pay.
Like I said, if after so many days, I think they should just be locked into the congressional hall and have to sleep on the floor, get bread and water. Like, come on, make something happen. You don't get to toy around with people's paychecks, toy around with people's lives.
Well, we might
comfort.
Might kind of see that.
You are there to serve. They are there to serve us, not to serve themselves.
Exactly.
And
we might kind of see that with them not being able to travel and fly.
What they're doing should be for our benefit. It's a democracy. We voted for them to get the best deal for us. And if they are not doing that, why are they in office in the first place?
Thank you for tuning in to the We Have Issues podcast. Please, if you have a chance, like and subscribe, comment, and leave a message, because we know you have one for us. And I am Carvell.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
And thank you for tuning in to the We Have Issues podcast.